up crony capitalism and Elon Musk. And by the way, when we cut him off, he went begging. He went begging the CCP, and that's why they have the joint venture in Shanghai, the Tesla, which is 100% of his value, right? This guy lives on government contracts and taxpayer subsidies, okay? It's all, we're going to get Joe Allen in here for a second to transform it. Elon Musk, once again, brother, I'm smart enough to tell you no to your face, and I'm evil enough to be able to expose you as a running dog for the greatest enemy this nation's ever had. You're a war profiteer. You're sleeping with the enemy, brother, and you've been doing it because you're not an American nationalist. You're not even an American. All you are is a globalist, okay? A globalist. And you will go where anybody writes you a check, and you would take it from Adolf Hitler himself, because you're taking it from people that are as bad as Adolf Hitler. The murderous regime of the Chinese Communist Party, which you praised on their 100th anniversary. Let me bring it.
That is astonishing. That is astonishing. Look, I will tell you this. I thought it was a mistake for Donald Trump to lose Steve Bannon. And many of the policies that Trump was pushing that were somewhat populist were coming from Steve Bannon. Now, apparently, there's a fight in MAGA. There's a war in the MAGA world. And I'm going to give you the readout of this war because I think it's actually pretty fascinating. And not just fascinating, I think MAGA has somewhat of a point. But it's kind of like abortion. It's like Republicans are, they don't want any woman to get an abortion. They would have doctors literally put in jail in order to stop women from getting an abortion. But then if you say, okay, well, who's going to pay for the kid once the kid is born? We have nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with that. We just want you to keep the kid. Now, the reason why I'm putting it something in those framework, because it's a similar theme to the war that they're having in MAGA. And that's why I come across this thing of saying, well, yeah, MAGA has a point, but it's the other part that they fundamentally miss. So I want to get into it. A fight started. Donald Trump selected, well, of course, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have that new program, the efficiency program, that they're supposed to be able to get money from the budget. All right. Now, keep in mind, Donald Trump was elected on Make America Great Again, meaning America First. Now, personally, I agree with him on that. I think America should be first when we're thinking about our politics. If that makes me a lefty nationalist, fair enough. But I do think that for all intents and purposes, if you have a country, you have a country. And the people who elect people in power, they're electing them to do the best thing for the country. So I don't quite get this idea of how being a nationalist is somewhat of a wrong thing. I guess it depends on what it means to you about being a nationalist. And I think we're going to come to different odds or different points of view in regards to what that means. But in regards to the just overall basic tenor of the point, make America great. Well, yeah, I think every country should make themselves great. That to the side. My point is they got elected on those policies, meaning that was the framework to which Donald Trump got elected, not the globalist stuff. Yeah, we're going to engage with the world, but all things being equal, my priorities are America. All right. So this includes Steve Bannon, but this also supposedly includes Elon Musk, because after all, Elon Musk was one of the people who was there to help get Donald Trump elected, not to mention, $50 million or some insane amount of money to get Trump elected. So these two are existing in the same party. And these two have very different ideas of what Make America Great means. And this is coming to a head in regard to the person that Donald Trump selected to run, let's see, what's the name of the organization? It is called Sharon Krishnan, venture capitalist, and he made him an advisor on AI policy. Now, Laura Loomer, Republican bomb thrower, comes out and points out this is deeply disturbing. And she said, it's alarming that the number of career leftists who are now being appointed to serve on Trump's administration when they share views that are in direct opposition to Trump America's First agenda. Now, what she means by this is the H-1B visa program, meaning the number of people you let into the country to do specialized jobs. So these are like the computer programmers, the people who are doing some kind of technical profession that companies like Amazon or Google or something like that would need in order to keep their company running. And so the idea is that Sharam is a Sharam, yeah, that he is going to let more people in, that he's probably going to advocate that we get more people from other countries, more people from India or China or whatever other country that we're bringing them in from. Now, by definition, of course, this means that every job that they take is a job that America can't take. And so Loomer, her point is, okay, well, this is not Make America Great. I voted for Make America Great. And there's certain connotations associated with that statement. Now, when Loomer makes this point, she gets a bit of backlash, but of course, and she puts it in a very bombastic way that's slightly racist, but whatever. So Elon Musk gets involved. And Elon Musk points out, he says there's not enough super talented people or super motivated engineers in the United States to do the job. And he says the number of people who are super talented engineers and super motivated in the United States is far too low. Think of this like a pro sports team. If you want your team to win the championship, you need to recruit top talent wherever they may be. This enables the whole team to win. Now, in another post, Elon Musk wrote, a shortage of excellent engineering talent, a fundamental limiting factor in Silicon Valley. So Musk's argument is like, Make America Great is great, but we don't have enough people here to do those programming jobs, those engineering jobs. We got to get those people from abroad because these companies need talent. And America, the 300 million or 20 million people of us, is not producing the talent that is necessary to do this job and to keep us ahead as a country. Now, the problem I have with both are right and both are wrong. Both are right and both are wrong. And that's not me fence-sitting. That's just kind of me true. It's not an ideological thing. It probably is true that because of the number of tech jobs and everything else, that we may not have, let's say, sufficient number to do it. It's also true that these people are paid less. These people have less rights. Meaning, you can hire somebody who you can basically pay less and is on somewhat of a leash. You can even call him an indentured servant, if you want to call it that, as an aggressive way to put it, but fair enough. As opposed to an American who you can't do that to, and you will have to pay a regular salary. So the companies have a vested interest in doing that. And so if you are somebody who's somewhat looking out for the best interests of the nation, you may say, well, wait a minute. How do we know there's not an American that can do that job? How do we know that? Considering you have a vested interest in wanting somebody who you can treat poorly and pay less. So, no, I can't necessarily take your word for it. But I'm just saying, it could be true as a flat fact in a sort of way, that the numbers, may not necessarily be there. By the same token, let's be honest, they have a vested interest in wanting it, which is why I don't necessarily trust it. There are 320 million people in this country, and you're telling me that you can't find somebody to do that particular job. Okay. Moving forward to that, though, the MAGA argument is, no, these people are trying to take advantage of these companies, these corporations. They are trying to do the best thing that is in their interests and bring in a huge amount of labor from outside that would displace American labor. And in the same way that immigration displaces American labor in certain areas where you can pay them less, they have less rights, they are terrified because they can be sent back or deported. And so you have people who are doing certain jobs that you could treat like shit. Whereas if you had an American, you cannot do that. So immigration, if you talk about like in southern states on plantations, becomes incentivized. And in the same way, it becomes incentivized there for those particular companies or corporations that can use that labor for dirt cheap as opposed to an American. The same thing is true in Silicon Valley. So you want to bring in a bunch of Indians or people from other countries that will replace American workers because you can pay them less. That's the MAGA argument. How is it wrong? How is it wrong? I think they're right. You should get American workers if you can get an American worker to do that job. And of course, the corporation has a vested interest in trying to find somebody who they can pay less. They always do that. They want to maximize their profit. It's not about looking out for American interests. It's looking out for the corporation's interests. Now, Elon Musk, who is a corporate person who just wants to make as much money as possible, he doesn't care about that. He's not even an American. He's South African. So his interest is going to be different than, let's say, the interests of somebody like Loomer or somebody like Steve Bannon, who takes the position that we should care about Americans first. Oh, it's a fascinating argument. It is a fascinating argument. Steve Bannon tears into Elon Musk's ass. He tears into his ass. And he in no way lets up. The first video, I want to show you the first video again. And then I'm going to show you the other video because he's done this more than once.
Crony capitalism, Elon Musk. And by the way, when we cut him off, he went begging the CCP, and that's why they have the joint venture in Shanghai, the Tesla, which is 100% of his value, right? This guy lives on government contracts and taxpayer subsidies, okay? It's all, we're going to get Joe Allen in here for a second to transform it. Elon Musk, once again, brother, I'm smart enough to tell you no to your face, and I'm evil enough to be able to expose you as a running dog for the greatest enemy this nation's ever had. You're a war profiteer. You're sleeping with the enemy, brother, and you've been doing it because you're not an American nationalist. You're not even an American. All you are is a globalist, okay? A globalist. And you will go where anybody writes you a check, and you would take it from Adolf Hitler himself because you're taking it from people that are as bad as Adolf Hitler. The murderous regime of the Chinese Communist Party, which you praised on their 100th anniversary. Let me bring it.
We're fighting the globalists. We're fighting the globalists. We're fighting the globalists. He's right. Not but a Chinese thing. That's a contextual argument that he's noticing that China is 3 times our population, industrial might, scientific might, development, and all this other stuff. He considers them an enemy of sorts to American hegemony. But from the Elon Musk standpoint, he is right. Elon Musk will take a dollar. What is a capitalist will sell you the rope that you'd use to hang him. Elon Musk has been a tick on Donald Trump's ass because he knows that once he gets into a position of power, that he can affect Trump with policy and whatnot in ways to make himself richer. He's not doing it for anybody else's benefit but his own. And even from the standpoint of buying Twitter, I know it was put in this cast of free speech, but he just wanted, like any other billionaire, a platform, just like Bezos has Washington Post, just like Bloomberg has Bloomberg News, or just like Elon Musk that now has Twitter. And Twitter, at this point, has larger reach than any of them because it's a conglomeration of news sources, not to mention Elon Musk, with all of these people can put out a tweet on everybody's channel at any time he wants. He's right. Musk, as a corporate capitalist, is looking out to figure out how can I make more money? And how can people like me make more money? I know, let's expand the HB1 visa program. Hey, let's just even get rid of it. Let anybody who wants to come here, come here. Let everybody from India come to the United States to fit all of the jobs. If we can do that, and the corporations will love it, and it will drive down wages for Americans. And on top of driving down wages for Americans, there's a level of desperation associated with people who are brought over here that are something like indentured servants. I think he's right. I think he's right. All right, so I want to play the other clip also because again, he tears into him again. And look, if you guys disagree with me, fair enough. I don't. I'm not going to agree with everything Bannon says, but I thought Donald Trump lost something when he cut Bannon loose the last election. Bannon was the guy on his team that was far more of a populist, as opposed to many of the other people that are there. This argument by itself is fascinating because the typical Republican Party would not make this argument. The Republican Party, for the most part, are business, top 1%. And Bannon is looking at this not in a pro-corporate sense, in a pro-American sense. Like, it's not, what's the best thing for the corporation? That's the Elon Musk argument. Bannon is saying, what is the best thing for Americans? If my kid wanted to get a job at a corporation doing coding, how am I going to get that kid that job? What is the best chances for that kid to get that job? And do the best chances, are they there if you get rid of the HB1 program? Or if you have a program? Well, if it's not there, then my kid has a chance to get in far more than somebody else who's trying to immigrate into the country. So yeah, that's the way he's looking at it. It's a fascinating argument because he's not looking at it as a pro-corporate argument. He's looking at it as a pro-American argument. It's fascinating. All right, let's see this part. Also, this one.
So Min Liang Tan, co-founder and CEO of Razer, tweeted, "I think Twitter should buy SVB and become a digital bank." Elon Musk replied, "I'm open to the idea." Seems a bit silly. I don't know. What would you think about that? Would that be
I think
bailout?
until Elon Musk starts letting back on the true anti-CCP people that he keeps blocked off there, myself included. Not that I want to go on
Really?
there. Oh yeah, no. He's owned by the Chinese Communist Party. What are you talking about? Tesla, his only thing of real value is Tesla. He uses it for margin loans. He sells the stock. The Shanghai joint venture is 100% controlled by the CCP. This is why he never goes after the CCP. This is why he always backs off. This is when they had the protest. They had the protest about the lockdowns of COVID. He will not do it. Elon Musk is a total and complete phony. He is in bed in a business partner. He's done some good stuff, letting stuff out, with Taibbi and others. It's fine. But he is owned lock, stock, and barrel by the Chinese Communist Party, and he acts like it.
There was a story recently that they warned him to stop talking about lab leak.
100%.
He's got, I think there was
They
another
wanted him to
story
take down the tweets he did the first
Right.
time. Now, he didn't take them down, but you notice he didn't have any more up there after that.
and I wonder if he said, okay, I won't tweet more about it. But here's the
I think that's Tim Pool. I don't know anything about Tim Pool. Owned, locked, and stock. His point is, look, the driving point that I think he's keep trying to make here is beyond the other video is Trump is running a MAGA campaign. I'm going to make America great. And supposedly, they are nationalists, American nationalists. That's the way they think of them. At the very least, that's the way Bannon thinks. That's the way some of these other people think. Elon Musk is not that guy. He's not. And Bannon is making this thing saying he is not one of us. He is not one of us. This is not the way he's supposed to think. This is not part of the context to which we are running this country. This is not what we signed up for. This is not what we fought in order to win for. That's their argument. That's their thought. And they're not wrong. Look, I agree with you. Bannon is rabidly anti-Chinese. Rabidly so. And you can hear it in both of those statements. But you must understand from his point, you're right, it is propaganda. But if you look at this stuff in an American context, and you are looking at it purely from the lens of American hegemony, we are at the top. This is a war for survival. We need to win. And in order to win, we must stay on top. We cannot let any other country get ahead of us. Okay, if that's your point of view, and you know, and you're being honest with yourself, America and Europe are fading into the background. Meaning your industrial might, your scientific might, even financial might, is nowhere near as what it was 10 years ago, and nowhere near what it was 20 years ago. The other countries of the world, for the most part, are rising up. And if you look up Europe, Europe is being deindustrialized. America is effectively colonizing Europe, or cannibalizing Europe. And so you have the US that, if you're being honest with yourself educationally, we're fading into the background. We're nowhere near as dominant. And if you're looking at like China, Russia, India, all of these other countries combined, where the dollar gets weaker and weaker and weaker, and all of this stuff is taking place from policy. Well, if you look at Bannon, Bannon looks at this as this is a disaster. We can't let this happen. And he looks at China as the opponent. So no, he's not right. China looks for win-win relationships. Bannon is not looking for a win-win relationship. Bannon thinks like an American in the sense that everything is zero-sum. But putting his rabid nature towards China to the side for a moment, he's right about Musk. He's right about Musk. And he is right also about H1B1 and the way that corporations would prefer that to operate, and that would prefer to be able to take advantage, and taking advantage is being able to displace Americans with foreign workers. So yeah, I agree with him. Now, the other shoe to drop on that, though, is what are you going to do about it? What if there is a number that Americans just can't meet? Like I gave you an example, the medical profession. If you look at nurses, if you go into a hospital, half of the nurses are like from somewhere else. They just are. And in part, we just don't have enough nurses to keep up. And so, yes, I would want an American in that spot, but I'm having difficulty getting an American in that spot. And what if it is true on some level? I don't know what that number is. Let's say corporations are taking a percent, and there's a 20% gap that needs to be filled. Then what? Then what? They don't want to do anything about it, is the issue. Like, I can accept the position of being this kind of nationalist on this issue, but then you got to do something about it. It's like you can't tell me that abortion is illegal, but I don't have money for a kid, and you don't want to do anything about the kid. Same thing with us. You can't have a situation where you're like, we don't want to bring in foreigners. Okay. Are you going to make education free so any and everybody that wants an education can get one, and you maximize the potential for people to go into the tech field? You can do that, but they don't do that. Meaning, it's one thing if you say, look, we're going to fill these slots with Americans, and from this point on, 4-year degrees are free, or at the very least, public education is free from public colleges. And if somebody wants to even go for a master's, God bless, we will pay for that also, because we believe in education, and we want as many people as we possibly can get to get an education in the fields that they want, with the notion that by virtue of taking that policy, there will be a percentage, an uptick in the number of people who are going to graduate. And by virtue of having more people to graduate, you're going to get more advanced degrees. And ideally, you would hit the jackpot and get some super talented people in the way that Elon Musk is talking about. Meaning, if you want more people to do something, you make it free or cheap. That's like anything. Why do you think they put taxes on things? It's like, oh, we don't want people to smoke, so we put a tax on it. We're going to increase the cost of cigarettes in order to dissuade people from doing it. Okay, so what does it mean when a kid has to pay $70,000 for a degree at 17 years old? Are those kids going to look to do something else? Many would. If the kid didn't have to pay $70,000, would that kid more or less likely go to school if it's something that they can easily do? The answer is, of course, yes. It's obvious. But they don't do that. They don't do that. You can't live in a magical world. Meaning, it's a magical world to say, well, we're going to be hard asses and get rid of H1B1s, or at the very least reduce it, and simultaneously not do anything to address what may be a real problem and a real issue. You can't have it both ways. Like, it is a nationalist position to say, I want every American that can get a degree to get a degree. How is that not a nationalist American position? I'm looking out for the best interests of the people of my country. It is a nationalist position to say, yes, we should have Medicare for all, meaning every American should be covered from health care because I care about Americans and I'm a nationalist. To me, those are nationalist positions. The H-1B1 thing is also a nationalist position, but they come across as inconsistent to me. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, well, yeah, I believe, that Americans are first and we should make sure that people are healthy. I mean, for fuck's sake, they even have R.F. Kennedy saying we need to have longer lives because I care that much about America. But going to school, yeah. I mean, getting education, yeah. It's magical thinking. That's my point. RFK is like, yeah, we're going to get rid of toxins in foods. We're going to do that. And we're going to stop serving high fructose corn syrup. And it's like, good. They don't even sell this stuff in Europe. When my ex came to the country, she was literally looking at every product, trying to find stuff that it wasn't in because in Europe it's poisonous. But what does it matter if I can't get health care? Or what does it matter if a person is putting $70,000 of debt on a child at 17 years old? I'm trying to get across that if indeed you're playing this nationalist card, where you care about America, care about the country and everything else, you can't care about a country without caring about the people in that country. And if you're trying to make those people's lives easier, better, more fulfilling, and as I keep pointing out, school is not just a thing that helps the individual, it also is something that helps the country, which is evidence of this very conversation that we're having right now. Again, I call myself a nationalist and make America great, even though apparently I come to very different conclusions about what that means. This issue is the exact reason why college and education should be free. If you are in a global contest with other countries, and the education, scientific proficiency, technological proficiency, all of those things are now key parts of what allows a country to be at the top or somewhere near the top of technological development. China has just put out a 6th generation aircraft that can fly in space. They just put out a ship. It looks like some kind of aircraft carrier that is one of the most advanced things I've ever seen in my life. Russia has just produced a missile, Oreshnik, that can fly at Mach 12 and unleash just devastating, unimaginable destruction. And that is not even their strongest missile. There's another one called Satan. Proficiency in technology is one of those things that is determinative in how far you advance and go. If we are going to hobble our kids because somebody wants to make a buck on those kids, a political solution should be reached to allow us to reach those H-1B1 visas, to deal with the technical issues, meaning industry and everything else. And again, to me, you can't be a nationalist and play this card of, well, we care about H-1B1s, we need to get rid of it, while simultaneously not expanding the number of people who can fit those jobs. Because again, just because I think corporations are abusing that system doesn't mean that that may be true, that there may be a gap somewhere that we need to be filled. I'm saying if you want to fill those gaps with Americans, you need to do something that increases the number of Americans that can fill the gaps. It's fascinating. War in MAGA heaven. War in MAGA heaven. Let's see, who do we have? Bobby. You make way too much sense. It's a shame we let our educational system become useless and unaffordable. I mean, look, Bobby, the thing is, like, for me, I don't know. I guess I look at this stuff as, your political instrument is there to try to make life For one, it's trying to make something that works, meaning a sustainable system where people can organize and talk, debate, and figure out a way to process and move society forward. There's no magic to it. It just needs to be consistent and something that works, where it's flexible enough to make changes when it needs to be because it has to accommodate new realities, but stable enough to not fall apart. And in order to be stable, you have to have people in that thing where they believe that they're a shared vision, this kind of shared goal. There's this ability that they're working in a cohesive unit where one cares about the other, even if you're not necessarily there. It's almost like a body of ideas to make a country what it is. In order for that country to proceed and process, the people come together and make a determination about what they need to cover, what they need to do, what is important to them. And a society could very well, and I think it should, come together and say there's certain things that we believe in. And if we indeed believe in the population and the people, well, we need to cover those people, especially considering, no, I don't want somebody with cancer not getting help about the cancer, or not going to the doctor because they don't necessarily want to pay the bill for whatever this or that thing is. We can make a political solution to this particular issue. We just don't do it because the reality of it is somebody is making a large sum of money, and in making a large sum of money, they pay politicians to keep it the way it is. We have this weird system where money equals speech. And so I can just bribe a politician or bribe a particular person, or these are the people I hang around in order to keep things relatively fixed. It's aggravating because people act like, well, there's no solution to it. No, there's a political solution to it. Other countries don't have this issue. Other countries are shocked by the way our political system is, or medical system is. And then when you get to school, the school thing is like shooting yourself in the liver. I want every kid that wants to go to school without any hedge on it. Because as a society, I am playing roulette on some level. You throw a bunch out. Many are going to be duds. Some are going to be mid-level, but some are going to be awesome. And the ones that are awesome are going to carry that society forward. You may lose a lot of that awesome if you don't open the process up to allow as many people as possible to go. It just seems the most natural thing in the world that if you allow more people to do something, that you're going to get more people out of it that are just better off, or that are just damn good. I guess my point is they want to fill the gaps without doing anything to fill those gaps. And then they're pulling this thing of, well, we're nationalists, so we don't want people coming into the country. It's like, dude, you can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. We have allowed business to disconnect from workers, consultants, and responsibilities and bring in Indian recruits. That's right. And consulting agencies is a show boss and middleman. Agreed. That's my point. I don't think he's wrong. I mean, he's, weirdly rabid against China. But when he's talking about Elon Musk, he's right. And that is a clear split where they are being very clear, this is not what we voted for. It's fascinating. Just utterly, entirely fascinating. All right, I'm going to end this. I'm going to say like. I'm going to say share. I'm going to say subscribe. Hit the notification bell. I will be here Monday, 7 a.m., 10 a.m. Well, every Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Share it to your mama. Share it on Twitter. And I will see you at a later date. You all have a fantastic night. Signing off.